Meditation and yoga can help improve the physical and mental health of people living with a chronic disease. Nurse practitioner Megan Weigel shares her experience as a yoga instructor and the positive impact that yoga and meditation can have on people living with MS.
Hi, I'm Megan Weigel. I'm a nurse practitioner in Jacksonville Beach, Florida with Baptist Neurology, and I've been an MS certified nurse for 15 years. But I think one of the best things that I've ever done in MS care is teach yoga to people living with MS. How did I get here is a question that I'm often asked. And at one point in my life, I was told that someone is always going to have a terrible, awful year. And I thought, well, what a horrible thing to say. But indeed, I had a terrible, awful year about 8 years ago. And I had a series of losses of people that were very close to me, and also ended up in a divorce. And as I was going through my divorce, I found yoga. I started practicing a lot and had the opportunity to attend a yoga retreat in Costa Rica. And I thought, well, great, this is awesome. This week is going to be it for me. It's going to totally change my life. It's going to totally change my story. It's going to totally change the person that I am in 1 week, right? Because that's what happens. And then the retreat was canceled. And I thought, gosh, how is this going to work with my life? And the instructor who was leading the retreat was the owner of my home studio, which is Big Fish Power Yoga. And she said, Megan, I'll give you 20% off our 200-hour yoga teacher training if you want to do that, since you couldn't go on the retreat. And I thought, what? Like, I wanted to go away for a week and relax and, sit and wallow and then get better. And teacher training is really hard work, and there's no way I want to teach yoga. And I'm also too busy. Like, I'm way too busy. I have too much going on. And so I sat down with my calendar one night just for the heck of it. And I said, well, let me see if I have any openings on these, 12 or 16 weekends over the next 4 months that I could do this teacher training. And I opened my calendar and I was flipping the pages, and I kept coming to weekends that were open, and I had nothing on the schedule. And then I started to get a little bit nervous because I realized that I had nothing on my schedule, which is also highly unusual. And I thought, well, this must be a sign, and I should probably sign up for this teacher training. So I did. I started yoga teacher training for Baptist Power Vinyasa Yoga in January of 2012. The first weekend, we sat and we were in a room. There were 12 of us who became very close in that 4 months. And we were asked why we were there. And I said, well, I don't want to teach yoga. I'll never teach yoga. I'm just here for personal growth. But if I ever taught yoga, I'd only teach yoga to people with multiple sclerosis. And first of all, I totally contradicted myself because I said I never wanted to teach yoga. And then suddenly I was offering up that I might want to teach yoga in such a way that would require even more training because of adaptations and learning how to teach to people with some physical challenges. And I thought, what am I thinking? Why did you just say that? But here I am. And the really cool thing about that is this morning, as I was flying here to do this, I got a text message from my friend Cheryl. Cheryl lives with MS, and she and I 6 years ago started a nonprofit called OMS Yoga to teach free yoga to people living with MS. And the text message said, look, it's our 6-year anniversary. 6 years ago, we re-met after meeting each other for the first time at an MS Society luncheon and agreeing that we both thought yoga would be good for people with MS. We just happened to put our yoga mats down next to each other at a large 300-person master class that Baron Baptiste came to Jacksonville to teach. And I thought, well, this is a great start to what I'm about to talk about today, which is really the benefits of yoga and meditation and mindfulness to people living with MS. I recommend yoga to everyone who lives with MS. And you know what? I met with the same excuses as when I tell a person without MS to go to yoga. They say, I'm too inflexible, my balance stinks, I don't look good in those clothes, I've never done that before. And I say, you know what, you're telling me the same things that my neighbor tells me. It's no different. We're really all the same in yoga class, and I still recommend that you come. We founded OMS Yoga almost 6 years ago. We founded a completely volunteer-based organization to teach free yoga classes to people living with multiple sclerosis. And since then, we've had partner studios in Jacksonville, Florida, and Charleston, South Carolina, and Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And once word of this kind of got out in our medical community, my colleagues were saying, well, when are you going to measure something? You know, it only matters in medicine and nursing if you can measure it. And I went back to Jacksonville and I went back to my MS class that I personally teach once a week. And I looked at people who were breathing together, people who weren't able to close their eyes in Savasana, which is a very quiet resting pose at the end of a yoga class, because they were too anxious and now they could close their eyes. People who were holding hands with one another for support. And I just couldn't figure out how I could possibly measure joy. And that is what was happening in our yoga community in Jacksonville and people living with MS. The MS literature regarding yoga is growing. There are probably a little over 30 studies that have looked at different types of yoga and benefits in multiple sclerosis. The problem with the studies is that they're small and it's very difficult to duplicate a standardized class and also to include a large population of people. But the literature definitely shows significant benefit in the studies that are published with depression, anxiety, fatigue, spasticity, balance, and pain. We have measured some quality of life measures in our classes in Jacksonville and in Philadelphia. And by and large, what people find to be the greatest benefit of yoga to them is community. And I think that is very, very important when you're living with MS because it's an unpredictable disease. And many people with MS live in isolation, and it's not until they find a community of people that they're truly able to embrace their disease and to feel empowered. So you take this room full of people who don't care if your balance stinks. They don't care if you fall over in tree pose. They don't care what you wear to yoga class. They just care that you show up. And you've taken away their isolation and you've taken away their fears. We teach a very empowering class, and we do that because we want to teach our students to be able to take principles of yoga out of the classroom, off their mat, and into the world, as we say. Again, because MS is an unpredictable disease. So we teach them to do hard things, and we ask them to do hard things, and we ask them to do it, and we help them to do it in a safe environment. At a period of time when my life was difficult, I used the physical practice of yoga to move emotions through my body. And these weren't always bad things. You know, sure, there was grief and there was anger, but there was also joy and there was also bravery. And feeling comfortable with the way those things feel in your body is very empowering when you're presented with a situation that causes you, could potentially cause you to be taken out. And I'll give you an example. I'm sure most of you, if you're like me, have gotten pulled over for maybe a speeding ticket at one point. And you know, the minute you see the flashing lights, you know, I don't know, I start to get a little shaky. My heart beats fast. My heart feels like it comes out into my throat. My voice might get shaky. I feel really sweaty. My lips start to shake. I might feel a little nauseous or sweaty. So these are situations that you can't run from. You need to figure out how to stay. And sometimes you're in physical situations that you don't need to run from, but they're hard. So maybe you're exercising and you're not at a place of pain, but you're at a place where you're challenging yourself and you could leave, but something inside you says, just stay and hold on because you're going to learn how to work through this. And that's what we try to teach our students through the practice of yoga. And we give them 3 tools. We give them the tool of breath, the tool of movement, and the tool of meditation. And these are 3 of the 8 limbs of yoga. Breathing is pranayama, movement is asana, and meditation is dhyana. We give them these tools and we hope that they practice them enough so that when they're presented with situations that challenge them off their mat, they're able to just go back to what they've learned in yoga class and decrease anxiety and decrease stress. There's been some good research recently about meditation and mindfulness in people living with MS, and there's definite improvements in quality of life, in pain, and in mood. We know also from research that regular meditators have longer telomeres, and telomere length is associated with aging. So the longer your telomeres are, the better off you're supposed to go through the aging process. So we teach meditation in our yoga class as well. So I thought maybe we could give it a try here, those of you who are listening to this, and I'd ask you to sit down in a chair and don't get too comfortable yet, because I want you to think of one of those situations that provokes anxiety. So maybe it's your mother-in-law coming to visit, maybe it's having to get up to go to work on Monday, maybe it's a meeting with your boss, maybe it's a visit to your doctor. And see if you can feel how that feels in your body. If you notice, your shoulders start to come up or your forehead starts to clench. And then I'd ask you to just put your feet on the ground. If you can take your shoes off, you can do that, but press your feet into the ground and sit up kind of tall in your chair. You have 4 corners of your feet. You have the ball of your big toe, the ball of your baby toe, and 2 corners at your heels. And you're going to press those into the ground and kind of feel yourself lift up in your chair. And then I want you to turn your inner thighs in a little bit, and then bring your belly muscles together at their center, and then tilt your pelvis just a little bit forward. Bring your shoulders up to your ears, and then let them roll down onto your back so that the palms of your hands open up on your lap and your shoulder blades come together. And then I'm going to teach you how to breathe an ujjayi breath, which is a really calming breath to the central nervous system. And it sounds like the ocean. You take a deep breath in through the back of your nose, and it's audible. So if you hear yourself, that's okay. And then you take a slow exhale, again, out through your nose. And I'll do that so you can hear it. And so take about 3 or 4 of those breaths, and then go back to that place of anxiety that you were able to discover before we started aligning our posture and breathing that breath. Do you even remember what it was? Hopefully not. So this is a tool that you can use anywhere. I do this in my office in between patient visits. I do this at the airport when I'm waiting for a flight and it's really noisy. I do this when I'm in a hurry and I know that my brain is going faster than my car is ever going to go. This is a tool that we teach our students to use off their mat. And it's yoga. It's breathing, it's movement, and it's meditation. It's 3 of the 8 limbs of yoga that we have found to work wonders in people living with multiple sclerosis. They don't just help them with anxiety, they don't just help them with balance, but when they come together as a group and do these together, they cause a community to happen that has, in my opinion, blown most of the research that is out there for yoga and MS out of the water.